Hello and welcome to this webcast from the Accounting Web Studios in Bristol. I'm Tom Herbert, editor of the site. Thank you very much for tuning in, and thank you also to Receipt Bank for supporting this session. So, as many of you know, on Accounting Web we get over 200 accounting firms enter our Practice Excellence Awards every year, and with that comes an enormous amount of data about what accounting firms are doing well and doing to grow. And one of the biggest trends throughout the year was the benefit that in-house bookkeeping can bring to a firm. We'll call back to that later, but we decided to do a webcast with it and bring in 3 experts on bookkeeping. So let's meet them. First of all is Mike Phillips, account manager over at Receipt Bank. Hi Mike.
Hi there.
And is Taz Mustafa. Hi Taz.
Hiya.
Taz is director and owner over at Barnes & Scott Chartered Accountants. And Alex Coombs. Hi Alex.
Yeah.
Alex is Cloud Technology Manager over at Ad Valorem. Yeah. So just run through a bit of housekeeping before we get cracking. All of the sessions are available on demand, so if you're having any technical problems, if the stream disappears for whatever reason, you're having trouble viewing it, then do email campaigns@accountingweb.co.uk, but don't worry, it will be available on demand afterwards. You'll get an email. If you do have any questions, there is a chat window to the side of this video. Obviously, if you're viewing it in full screen, then you'll have to minimize it by clicking on the box in the bottom right hand corner. If you want to ask any questions, just pop your username and your question in the chat box and we'll try to answer as many as we can at the end. If we do miss any, then we'll answer some as part of a post-event follow-up on Accounting Web. So let's have a quick blast through the agenda, what we're going to be talking about today. Key theme is the benefits and practicalities of in-house bookkeeping. So why it's a good idea, how we actually get the data in, once the data's in, what we do with it, and then adding value, what services you can gain from the efficiencies of in-house bookkeeping, and a Q&A at the end, so do get your questions coming in. So let's start with the data. So both the Zero Partner Benchmarking Report and the 2017 Practice Excellence data from Accounting Web both show that firms who brought bookkeeping in-house in 2017 saw a growth of up to 49%. I think that figure was the Zero report. I think Practice Excellence was around 47%. In terms of the benefits of handling bookkeeping in-house, Taz, can I start with you? If you're okay to just introduce your firm very quickly before we start.
Yeah, so Barnes & Scott is a chartered accounting firm based in London, and we specialise in the technology sector.
Fantastic. And Alex, could you do the same?
Yes, Ad Valorem's based just outside Milton Keynes, and we're a family-run firm working with all different kinds of businesses, really.
Great. And Mike, for Receipt Bank, I guess your job is to go around talking about the benefits of in-house bookkeeping with accountants.
Yeah, absolutely. I'm part of the team that manages our larger accounts, so I focus on really helping accountants and bookkeepers make the most of new technology and grow their firms.
Fantastic, thank you. Taz, I'm going to come to you first. Why do you handle bookkeeping in-house?
We find that it gives us really good visibility over our clients' day-to-day business, and it means that we can better advise and build good long-term relationships with clients. We found that through doing the basics, such as bookkeeping, you can then add on additional services such as advisory or tax advice and things like that. So it's been really beneficial to our firm to do bookkeeping in-house.
Alex, same question to you.
So we've taken a slightly different view on it, that we'd like to educate our clients in how they can do their own bookkeeping, because Zero and Receipt Bank has made it so simple to do. It's not really too much of an accountant's job anymore, so we now own the process and implement our process and focus a lot more on education with our clients rather than doing the bookkeeping ourselves.
Taz, can I ask you, when we were talking off air, you were talking about a particular client that you'd worked with.
So Forge Photographic Services, and they're a photography and retouching studio in London, and they were one of the first clients that we took on for bookkeeping, and this was about 4 or 5 years ago. And when we took them on, they had some very archaic processes in place. So there was a lot of paper-based transactions. There were emails going back and forth with their accountant, and things like their VAT was being filed last minute because it was taking so long to process all the data. And we came in and we implemented Receipt Bank quite quickly and efficiently. It was quite easy to do. There wasn't much training needed because Receipt Bank is quite easy to use. If you can send an email, then you can pretty much use Receipt Bank. The clients saw some really good benefits. So their business has grown quite a lot since then. The director has said that he feels a lot less stressed about running the business on a day-to-day basis. We're able to give them VAT estimates very quickly early on in the month, so that helps with cash flow planning. And also the client quite enjoys having an app on his phone that he can sort of show other people how easy it is to sort of send his receipts to his accountant. And from that we've gained quite a few referrals, so it's been really good for our business as well.
Fantastic. I guess you must have similar experiences, Alex.
Yeah, so we've implemented quite a few different ranges of technology into our clients. Particular one that comes to mind was an estate agency we work with. They had a bookkeeper in-house. They unfortunately lost. So I went in there for a week and basically process mapped their entire systems, put everything down on paper, made it so simple to use with software that we were able to just get somebody in fresh out of school and they were able to follow the process maps and keep the business running and keep everything in real-time information.
Interesting, yeah. So Mike, we've seen a boom in the growth of tools like Receipt Bank in the last sort of 2 to 3 years, I'd say, particularly in 2017. We've just seen it. Software Excellence Awards data showed an astronomical growth in sort of cloud tools. Is this just down to Making Tax Digital?
Unsurprisingly, this is a question we get asked quite a lot, and it's certainly a consideration for a lot of our partner firms. But beyond that, or before that, a lot of our partners have experienced quite a lot of growth in their practices and in their client numbers, driven mainly by expanding their bookkeeping practices, where previously it maybe wasn't a profitable revenue stream before, it has now become one. There's no real reason to wait until MTD to deliver a high level or this level of client experience to your customers. It's really an opportunity to be well prepared and almost more prepared than your competitors, because by the time MTD comes and all these processes are mandated for compliance, you can be the experienced accountant that clients are looking to because you've been doing these things for a long time.
Alex, is Making Tax Digital something your clients are asking about?
We do get a few people ask about it, and it's been quite a good success for us because people are more willing now to go online than they were before. They understand that this is something that's coming in, and we haven't had to push it too hard because we like to see ourselves as kind of cloud-based more than not. But we've had a really good one. I had a farmer ring me up out of the blue and just said, I can see Making Tax Digital is coming around the corner. I'd like to go onto cloud software. And farming, as you know, will be one of the industries that nobody really expects to go onto online, but it just came out of nowhere, and they really are thinking for themselves, which is a nice surprise for us.
Yeah, obviously runs a stable business. Mike, previously bookkeeping was a bit of an afterthought for many accounting firms, but now I think that people can see the benefits of tools like yourself. Can you just, I guess it gives people a chance to sort of build from the start, sort of push the restart button. Could you just explain, I think Receipt Bank have something called the virtuous bookkeeping circles. You just explain
Absolutely,
a little bit about that.
So I think it's showing on this slide now. It's fairly simple. It's essentially just a circle of adding value at every stage. So at the top you've got getting the actual bookkeeping data from your clients, and then adding value to that data for your clients, and then it's a circle of getting the next set of data, and so on and so forth. And I think previously a lot of firms have been stuck at the getting the data stage. Maybe you've been chasing your clients, and once you get the information, it's only half complete, or it's categorized incorrectly, or what have you. You've got to go back to them to get the extra info, and all that leaves firms with no time to actually add any value. So that we know this is one of the biggest pain points. It's one of the first things that we address when firms come on as our partners. Really, our aim is to make getting the data from clients as simple as possible, so that firms can focus on adding value to their clients.
Fantastic, thank you, Mike. Now you've mentioned getting the data, let's move smoothly on to part 2, which is called getting the data. So in terms of how it works in practice, obviously it's one of the biggest challenges for accounting firms, because there tends to be this disconnect in how the client wants to put in the data and how the accountant thinks they should. Alex, can you just talk me through your processes? What's a sort of normal day for you in terms of extracting this data?
Yeah, so a normal kind of day for me is probably about 50% of my time will be spent educating clients in various different ways. We run drop-in days, we do recorded training sessions, I also go out and do one-to-one training sessions, and then also we offer unlimited telephone support with our cloud solutions, so I do get a lot of phone calls, mobile and straight into my direct line, but it's all very useful, and it's always, we've been shooting ourselves in the foot beforehand by just fixing client problems and not explaining what we're doing, and then they will always come back to you with the same problem. So we've taken a different stance of, if we can show them what they're doing wrong and how to avoid it in future, we're just going to limit how much we have to be doing for them and how much more they can just do for themselves.
Does it sort of depend on the client though? If some of them will be sort of quite tech savvy and quite interested, and others might just want their accountant to do it for them, as it were, and not be too fussed.
Yeah, we do get, it's a very wide range of clients. It does differ from client to client, but we'd like to say that we're very flexible with how we work, so it's just discussing with them. Obviously, the more they do, the less we're going to charge. It's just the natural sort of cycle of it, but we can show them that bookkeeping is not as big and scary as it used to be. It's not trying to go into a Sage desktop and run your business through there. With Xero and Receipt Bank, it's a lot simpler, it's a lot easier, it's designed for end users more than accountants, and just showing people that they really do kind of understand that bookkeeping is not something they can't do anymore.
Taz, I know you work hard on getting your clients to input the data. Can you, in a similar way to Alex, walk us through your processes?
Yeah, so we've got a guide for clients called Use Receipt Bank Like a Pro, which is a very sort of simple few steps that we've laid out for clients. And it's just about getting them using the software to get the best value out of it. So things like how to set auto forwards for your supplier invoices into the system. We also get them to handwrite notes on the receipts, just little codes that we teach the clients. So for example, TNS for travel and subsistence, or we get them to write a P if they've paid from it from personal funds. And yeah, so we just have to do a bit of training as well to help the client get the best out of the system.
Yeah, no, I did have a look at your Use Receipt Bank Like a Pro, and even this mere journalist could understand what was going on.
Yeah, so well, we're happy to share it with people if they want to have a look at it.
Fantastic, thank you, Taz. Yeah, we'll make that available in the along with the slides in an email pack. After this, I know that in terms of client buy-in, Taz, you had a trick that you used when meeting someone.
Quite often when we're meeting potential clients, I'll have a receipt in my pocket for a coffee that I've had that morning, and during the meeting, if we're talking about Receipt Bank and how easy it is to use, I'll take the receipt out of my pocket, take a picture of it on the app, and then scrunch it up and throw it in the bin. And that can be quite a powerful message to new potential clients, so they can see how easy it is to use, and how you don't need to keep large volumes of paperwork because it's held in the system forever, essentially.
Yeah. Mike, do you have any examples of accountants using their onboarding process as a sort of educational tool?
Yes, I think what's important to emphasise is that onboarding isn't difficult, it's not complicated. Taz has sort of just demonstrated there how easy it is to show the value to the client, just taking a photo and then that's it. We have an entire team in-house to support this sort of client onboarding. We sit down with the team, host webinars with the clients, walk through what Receipt Bank is, why it's helpful, how to submit using the phone app. So it's very easy to demonstrate the value. And as you say, you can throw the receipt away straight away in front of them, so they can see that. We actually used to have a feature on the phone app that had the sound of a scrunching paper when you take the photo, which is exactly the same as what you just said. But when we removed it, people were quite upset. But it's, you demonstrate the value immediately with. They don't have to keep that receipt, they don't have to keep track of it until the end of the month. And then later on down the line, you can demonstrate value with metrics. You're giving them real-time information on their business, up to date to the last couple of hours, and they can use that to make their businesses more successful.
And I guess that I think Alex touched on it a little bit here, and you mentioned demonstrating value through metrics, but I guess that regardless of how difficult you want to be about the technology, if it's something that's coming off your bottom line, then that's the be all and end all. If it's helping your business, then that's surely a good thing. Just a question for both of you, Taz and Alex. Where do you think you extract the most value from these tech solutions?
I think it's in being able to process large volumes of data very quickly and efficiently. So we found that it's far more efficient to let Receipt Bank do the extraction and let our team do the analysis than it is to create that data from scratch. So that's where the real value is in it for our business.
Okay.
Yes, just building on from what Taz said there, it's about using our time to the best of our ability, really. So where we are not doing too much data input anymore, we've still got the same fee structures in place. So we've freed up more fees for our sort of compliance guys to be able to provide small levels of advisory to kind of help our clients further and just demonstrate what we can do and how having technology in place, making it all real time, really just takes a bit of the weight off everyone's shoulders, because you're not rushing for deadlines, you're not trying to run around on filing dates and get everything sorted. You have everything as and when you need it, pretty much.
Fantastic. In terms of next steps for adding value, Mike, do you have anything that you could share with us?
Sure. Yeah, I think on the screen we're showing a few slides. So from the onboarding perspective, it's extremely simple. As I was saying, to get your clients involved, once you add them to the platform, they can get invited immediately through an SMS to their phone, which just invites them to download the mobile app. So it's very simple from their perspective. Really, their involvement in the submission stops with just taking a photo or emailing an invoice, for example. So they don't need any more knowledge than that. I think we had on a slide earlier that no one needs onboarding for Instagram, which is a bit of a joke, but it's true. If you've got Instagram or Snapchat, no one needs a complex onboarding process to take a photo. And really, that's all it is. It's second nature to a lot of people. And then I think it's literally just emphasising that once you take the photo, that's it, the data's captured and you can throw it away. I think we also have in-app messaging. So Taz, you were mentioning that you ask your clients to write extra information on the receipts, and that's a process that works for Taz. We're very flexible with how extra information can come into Receipt Bank. So we have a feature called in-app messaging or client communication, and essentially if a client submits an item that you have a question on, maybe you're trying to identify what project it's for, or you're not quite sure what's going on, you can just go into the item in Receipt Bank and type a message, and that will send them a notification, your client a notification straight to their phone, essentially starting a WhatsApp type conversation with them. All that's stored against the item. It saves you having to download the item, email it to them, chase them up, call them. It just keeps things streamlined, really, getting the communication process better.
Fantastic. Thank you, Mike. So we've had a couple of nice conversations already going on the live panel. Feel free to join in. As I say, it should be, depending on your browser, either below this video panel or to the side of it. I think one of the queries that had come in was asking if Taz would share the guide, which, as we've said, he's very happy to do so, and we'll send it out as part of an email pack afterwards. As I say, do keep your questions coming in. We'll get to them a little bit later. For now, we'll move on to section 3, processing the data for compliance. So once you've got this data, what do you do with it? I'm going to come to you first, Mike. Could you give us a few examples of how Receipt Bank takes the data and pushes it into these various compliance engines for processing purposes?
Yeah, absolutely. So we extract key fields from the receipts or the invoices, and all that information is ready to be reviewed before it goes anywhere, unless you sort of set up the rules, which we'll go into later. Once that's ready, you can publish that through to any cloud accounting software, Xero for example, or if you're using desktop accounting software, that can be downloaded to a CSV and pushed into there. So you have the data ready, extracted, and then pushed into a system to do your management accounts. We store that information in what we call the archive in Receipt Bank for 7 years, so it's fully HMRC compliant, and obviously all our data protection rules are being updated for GDPR in the coming year as well. So it's fully compliant, and we just sort of push into the relevant systems as and when need be.
Yeah, just on a side note, GDPR, it's I think what many people refer to as a sort of on a similar level to MTD in terms of the sort of scare stories that are being whipped up around it. Taz and Alex, how much have you got any sort of feedback from clients around this?
It's not come up a huge deal for us, but it's good to know that Receipt Bank are sort of covering it, because that's a lot of the important data is held there. So
Yeah, just building on that, really, what Taz is, it's not something we've looked into too much, but it's good to hear the Receipt Bank are, and I've had conversation with Xero as well, that they're going to be, and that's where we keep most of our clients' data, so as long as they're going to be compliant, I think everything should work well.
Sure. So Taz, once you've got your data in, what's your sort of process for...
So the data comes in on a day-to-day basis, and we process it in real time. In Receipt Bank, we'll clarify any queries on any unusual transactions or large invoices before pushing it into the accounting system. And we use Xero. It works really well for us because we've got a full audit trail in the system, so it makes things like VAT returns and annual accounts much easier to do. So for management to review the accounts, this is a simple process because each transaction is tied back to the actual paperwork, so it makes it easier to identify things like accruals and prepayments. VAT compliance checks are easy for us to deal with, again because we've got the full audit trail back to the actual paperwork. And yeah, so I mean, working this way is good for us. It's a scalable solution. Previously, when we first started out, we had a few shoe boxes in, and we realised quite quickly that we wouldn't be able to scale that up as a business. And when we started using Receipt Bank, we realised that actually we can process a lot of information quite quickly and grow our client base quite quickly as well.
Yeah, so I guess it's more efficient to import the data and review it than the man with the shoebox starting from scratch. Yeah,
and we found it's more accurate as well. There's less human error. I mean, sort of Receipt Bank is sort of the first pair of eyes really that looks at the data, and it's quite easy to filter for any obvious errors. And so overall, we find it's more accurate than doing it sort of manually.
And Alex, what are your processes and how do you use?
Yeah, so by implementing things like Xero and Receipt Bank, we've been able to kind of build in, like I was saying earlier, a lot more of the advisory side into compliance, so making sure that we're doing risk assessments, making sure that we're just spotting any sort of simple tax savings that can be made, just the simple things that clients don't really pick up on, but where we can really just add a little bit of value without too much work. That's really been possible because, like I said, we've been able to drop our data entry time, we're dropping our processing time so that we have more time available for the advisory, because it's where maybe the industry is going towards, but it's certainly where we find ourselves a lot more comfortable. It's a lot easier just having the conversations with clients, and that's where we find ourselves most comfortable, is just speaking with people on a general level.
Yeah. So Mike, obviously accountants like Taz who have pretty much been digital from the word go have an advantage in this instance, but have you got any examples of firms who perhaps weren't digital and have gone that way?
Plenty. Because obviously we work with a wide range of firms, and and a lot of them majority of them have been in existence before obviously all this technology came along. So really, some of the biggest issues have come from, if we start at the start of the process. We've already talked about getting the data. We have a partner who previously, before joining Receipt Bank, bought Jeeps for their entire staff so that they could travel out to their rural clients and pick up their documents every couple of weeks. So they could get rid of the Jeeps, everything could be done remotely. That was completely simplified. Once you've got the information, the problem's always been actually extracting the data, and no one wants to be sat there typing up the data into Excel for hours. So obviously we have the tools to sort of automate that and remove the pain from that. I think there was a Xero paper published a couple of months ago called Digital or Die. I'm not sure if any of you have read that. Worth reading, it's very interesting, and it said for 61% of accountants, the most time-consuming task was bank reconciliation. And so in Receipt Bank we have the ability to automatically match a submission in Receipt Bank to a transaction on the client's bank feed in Xero. You can see that before you publish through. So you can sort of remove that pain also. We had quite a good an interesting article posted, or blog post, from an Australian partner of ours quite recently, and she just brought a client onto Receipt Bank and they submitted a bunch of items and then come back a couple of hours later in a panic because they couldn't see any of the items in Receipt Bank. They didn't know about the archive at that stage, and they'd thrown all the receipts away. And what had happened is the accountant had already received the information, reviewed it, published it through to, I think, Xero, and it was their accounts were up to date as of 2 hours ago. So a pretty great first client experience. And so at all stages of the process, there's a lot of pain, but there are easy ways to mitigate that.
So yeah, a lot of time-saving efficiencies. Are there any other features that Receipt Bank have that can help with this?
Absolutely, yeah. So I think if we're just showing on the screen, this is really what you see when you submit an item. You've got the image on the left and then the data that's extracted on the right. What we also have, if we go to the next slide, is supplier rules. So this is essentially the ability to set up rules for regular suppliers so that when, say, an invoice comes in, it's correctly, the correct tax is applied, the correct category, among a host of other things, correct payment methods, so on and so forth, assigned to specific cards, specific individuals. The end goal of this really is you set up enough rules with your suppliers so that when an invoice comes in, you don't need to touch it at all, and it can just be automatically published. We call it auto-published to, say, Xero or QuickBooks, one of the cloud accounting softwares. So really, by the time you see it, it's ideally already been reconciled with the bank, and you don't need to touch it at all. And that's where the real efficiency gains can come in. And usually the best place to start with this is with your own invoices to clients, because you know exactly what that's going to be each month, and it's very easy to then build up the trust with the rules to allow you to apply that elsewhere.
Lovely. So plenty of added value there, which is where we're moving now in section 4. So obviously we've got the data, we've processed it, we've saved a whole bunch of time, which allows us to move on to other things. Taz, beside client education that you've mentioned earlier, are there any other ways that you found to add value with in-house bookkeeping?
Yeah, so we've got some good examples of this, and building on also from what Mike was saying. We had a client who called me up recently. He was in an agent's office trying to negotiate on a commercial lease, and he needed some up-to-date financials because the business had done really well in the last couple of months. And pretty much because all of his invoices had been coming in to the system, we had a pretty much live view, so we were quite easily able to produce an up-to-date profit and loss account and balance sheet for him, sent it sent it across almost instantly, and he was able to use that information in that meeting to successfully negotiate a lease. So that was really good. It shows, the client could see that we're using the data, and the stuff that he's sending in is actually being used to keep his books up to date. Another example is we recently had a client who called us up in a bit of a panic about a VAT compliance check, and he'd missed the first letter from HMRC, so he'd only seen the second letter saying that he needed to send in all this information quite quickly in the next couple of days. And we were able to deal with it quite calmly and confidently because, again, Receipt Bank had the full audit trail. So, we were able to pick up all the invoices with VAT on them and just create a very simple pack for him to send over to HMRC. Took a couple of hours from the comfort of my own bedroom. So that's a real benefit to us. And was adding value to the client because they knew that they could trust us to deal with matters like this. And then finally, we were able to send out quarterly management reports for free to all clients, and this is based on the information that we have in the system, and it's something that we can do at little or no cost, but is of huge benefit to the client. And we found that clients that do engage with their financials are have much better success in the long term because they've got a good financial grounding. Those are sort of some important ways that we can add value.
Yeah, obviously it depends on the client, but just as a rough average, how long does it take you to create these quarterly management reports?
Well, because we've got the data in the system and we tend to run them after running the VAT return, so we've got the books up to date. Yeah. So it would probably be about 2 minutes per client.
Okay, they're sort of fairly standardised because I know management reports can sort of vary.
Well, you can build up templates, so you sort of maybe the initial one will be very quick, and then you might sort of build up a slightly different view, and then carry that forward. So, but it doesn't take very long at all.
Yeah. Alex, do you find that having in-house bookkeeping helps you sell other services?
Yeah, I think it does because the cloud accounting world it kind of sells itself at the moment when you show people things like Receipt Bank, especially when you, like they were saying about taking a photo in a meeting, that pretty much sells itself instantly. Nobody can ever come up with a reason why you wouldn't do that. So with that kind of dealing with itself, what we've more moved into now is offering the vertical apps, so the apps that can help people run their actual businesses. We had a good one recently who came in, who was a sweet manufacturer, and he said to me, I love the idea of Xero and Receipt Bank, it's brilliant, it's what I want to do with my business, but it's not actually going to help me, it's not going to run my warehouse, it's not going to do anything like this. So we were able to put him in touch with a few different inventory management systems that all would feed in with Xero and Receipt Bank and build it in that way, so that he now runs 90% of his business in that system, and then Xero and Receipt Bank are just in the back office making sure that everything's compliant for us, really. And then there's a few other things that we kind of do with people, so we are moving much more into the sort of tax advisory stuff, so R&D claims, we're having a lot of success with that. I know Taz is as well, but it's just kind of seeing what we can offer our clients. We like to almost call ourselves a one-stop shop. We can do pretty much everything, but it's just finding what the client really needs, because we could do 1,000 different things, but they're only probably going to need 10 of them. So it's just making sure that we put them in the right place within our own business.
Fantastic. And how does this affect fees, as it were?
Yeah, so the fee structure, and we're trying to almost change our fees internally, especially along the cloud line of it, so that we can offer the compliance services, the things that clients have to do, not what they want to do, the sort of need, everything they have to report to HMRC. That's what we want to do as cheap as we can, try and get that all processed, all streamlined, so that they can spend their money better with us. So where we were looking before at maybe a £5,000 fee for a client, which £4,000 was compliance and about £1,000 in advisory, we're now completely switching that on its head, so doing £1,000 in compliance and doing £4,000 in advisory. So we're still offering the same compliance services, but we're now offering a lot more advisory time with the clients to help them grow, because if all of our clients are growing, we're going to grow with them.
It's a really interesting point you make there about sort of flipping that fee structure on its head. It's something that occasionally comes up on the site that a few of our members will say, oh well, you know, if they don't want these fancy advisory services, you know, they just want you to just do the compliance stuff and then off they go. They wouldn't want to pay for this stuff. Is that, in your experience, Taz, is that something that you've come across before?
Not really, no. I mean, we're always happy to review the fee, and you know, if we can reduce their bookkeeping fee because of the efficiencies and automations that we can provide, then we'll happily do so. But within keeping in mind that, you know, there is a potential to provide other services such as advisory, and yeah, we find generally the take up is pretty good. I mean, once you've got the basics there in place, people trust you and they're happy to you know, come to you for advice on other things.
I suppose like things like R&D claims, if you've spotted something that's there, if you went to a client and said, hey, I can save you a whole bunch of money, they're not exactly going to say no. So
yeah, exactly. Yeah. So yeah, and we've had quite a few cases of that where we've been doing bookkeeping for a company. We might have taken them over from a previous firm, and you know, we've identified opportunities for things like R&D where they previously weren't being claimed. So yeah.
Great, thank you, Taz. Mike, do you have any other examples of how it's helped to add value?
Yeah, I think just before that, it's difficult to overstate the value of the sort of ecosystem of apps that you're referring to. It's important to, every client's different and might need different attention, but it's important to have a base platform of systems that you sort of as your preferred vendor and what you roll out generally to most of your clients. But then, you know, there are all these other different apps that can do the different parts of your client's business, like you were talking about, that's just really interesting to explore. There's a solution out there for every client, no matter how complicated. But a few of the other actual benefits of this is really dealing with paperless, you know, paperless clients. You can completely cut down on space. We have partners who previously rented space out for their filing cabinets to store clients' data, so they could get rid of that. Audits, the work of a few hours instead of a few days. As you say, you can do it from your bedroom. You don't need to trawl through, I don't know, rooms that have been closed for decades. So that's quite an interesting one. Also, being able to provide real-time advice to clients, because if they're submitting on the go, they're submitting their data real time, so you can actually give them advice that's appropriate for what they're doing at the time. They can use that to drive their business success. What we've got on the slides here as well are just a few things that within Receipt Bank can really help and add value. So what you're seeing here is Practice Platform, which is essentially a tool to enable you to manage a bookkeeping process at scale. It sits on top of your client's bookkeeping information and just gives you metrics that mean you can prioritize correctly, you can identify how much workload you have left, you can identify how efficient your clients are being, so gives you something to talk about when you sit down with your clients. You can actually say, look, this is what you can improve, and this is how you can improve your business. I mean, a really useful feature on there, for example, is something that looks into the client's bank feed in Xero and then cross-checks in Receipt Bank for any submissions and can pull off a report that you can send to your client and say, look, I know you've made these 5 transactions, but where's the data? So you can send that before month end or whenever, but that's just, it takes a bit of the pressure out of that. We also have Practice View as well. We just launched this at the start of this month, and this really aggregates all that client data up to a practice level, so you can see how your firm is doing and progressing. And really, this is great for setting KPIs with the team. We're finding that, say, if you're identifying how many items you want to be submitted digitally through email or the app, or how many items to be auto-published, you can say, okay, by the end of the quarter, we'd like to be here rather than here. It's good to set those KPIs with the team, and soon we'll be able to benchmark, you know, against other sort of competitors, you know, your peers in the industry, so you can see how you're performing as well. So this is really useful for firm owners to assess practice progress.
Fantastic, thank you, Mike. So looking to the future then, you know, while we've only got a few minutes left, so we're going to wrap up with a sort of closing summary. Taz, what's next for Barnes & Scott in terms of the services you're going to be offering?
So we're just going to continue growing our business this year and continue helping the London technology sector grow and develop. We're looking to hire a new person this year and a couple more next year. And one of the key things we're going to be looking at next year is improving our client onboarding system and training schedule, and just try to make that a lot more efficient and better value for the client, so they can make the most out of the systems that we're using.
Okay, and in terms of the services, are you looking to sort of expand the services you're going to be offering?
Well, we're going to continue doing our compliance work and build out on the advisory from there.
Alex, same question to you.
Yeah, so what our plans are, like Taz was saying, we're going to continue to grow our firm, but the big move that we're kind of making at the moment is we're more switching into helping other accountancy firms grow. So we're looking to top and tail where smaller firms can't provide the same level of services we can, so that we're not taking clients, but we're helping them grow their client bank by offering R&D services. Probably 3 of our top 5 clients at the moment are other accountancy practices. We're doing so much work with other practices, and we're really looking to grow that side of it as much as we can.
Okay, that's really interesting. Yeah. And Mike, what about Receipt Bank? What's next for you?
So there's a few things, I guess, firstly on a product level, we're expanding the range of data that we can accept. We already have the best sort of artificial intelligence in the market, and now we're going to apply that beyond the standard receipts and purchase invoices that we've always done to bank statements and sales invoices in the new year. We're also investing heavily in OneTap, which is our offering exclusively for non-VAT registered sole traders. We've recently introduced the sort of income side offering for that, and there's a very quick roadmap of new releases over the coming months that will expand that functionality. And we already have quite a few tools for communication as we've been through. But a couple of new features we'll be releasing sometime next year called Sweep and Fetch. Will just make it that much easier to actually collect the data from clients. So Sweep, obviously with client's permission, will pull in anything that looks like a receipt or invoice from that client's inbox, so they don't even have to send it to us. And then Fetch is a step further. So if you've got something like British Gas, where you need to log in every month and download the invoice, client can just enter their credentials once into Receipt Bank, and we'll do that every month. So it's just, again, removing the pain from actually getting the clients to send you the information. And then on a sort of partner level, we have an entire support framework dedicated to client onboarding, client education, internal implementation. So we want to get stuck in and really help clients maximize the value they get out of Receipt Bank. So we'll sit down and build a plan that really works for them.
Fantastic. So, just on a final point, as it were, just one bit of advice from each of you on either for accountants who are sort of looking to onboard either reluctant clients or clients who haven't gone digital before. What piece of advice would you offer, Alex?
Well, our mantra at Ad Valorem is always educate the staff, and the staff will educate the clients. And we're always continuing to grow. We're massive on education. Does fall down a lot to me, but it is just growing education as much as possible, making sure all the staff singing off the same hymn sheet, and then they can roll that out to your clients.
Fantastic. Mike?
I think don't wait until you have to do something because it's for compliance reasons, because then it's too late. If you need help, ask. We have teams dedicated to help with this.
Fantastic. Taz?
My advice would be just to start using apps like Receipt Bank within your own business, get used to using them, get an understanding of how they work, and then just start demoing it to as many people as you can, scrunch up some receipts and throw them in the bin, and you'll be surprised at the reaction that you get from that.
Lovely, thank you. So yeah, we've had a bumper crop of questions on the panel. So Tax Guy rightly tells me off for asking a stupid GDPR question. So fair enough. So Hammonds has asked, does Receipt Bank really make that advisory that much easier though?
So I think the focus is on time. If you're spending any time doing manual data entry now, that's the time that we can save you. It's then obviously up to the individual firms what they do with that time, and if they want to focus on doing advisory work, then that's up to them. But what we can do is facilitate that extra time. We remove the effort spent doing manual data entry.
Yeah, and I guess if they want to do more compliance work instead, then
Exactly. Yeah,
wonderful.
they don't have to do the advisory piece, so that's up to them.
Good. Michael has asked, what do Taz and Alex think the best thing Receipt Bank does for them is, and what's the one thing they'd like it to do next?
I'd say the best thing probably Receipt Bank does for us is provide real-time data. The fact that things are happening the same day, a client's making a purchase, and that same day that purchase is appearing in their accounting system, which just gives you so much ease in you're not waiting for things, you're not sitting around just twiddling your thumbs waiting for something to happen.
Yeah.
It's all so much more instant, more quick. But Receipt Bank, I mean, I think Mike might have answered what I would want it to do, which is sales and bank statements.
There you
So that sounds good to me.
Fair enough. Taz?
I think the best thing Receipt Bank's done for us is give us a bit of a differentiator. So, as I said, it's easy to show off to people about it, and it gets people interested and hooked on something that you're doing that's a bit different. So that's been really good. And in terms of what's next, I think what Mike was saying, we're pulling out the data from emails or logging in and being able to pull out that data is going to be quite powerful. And so I think that would be quite a good feature to have.
And this one comes in from L Woods. Are you seeing changes to the services clients are looking for, Taz?
We're seeing a lot of clients come to us who expect us to have something like Receipt Bank in place. So, it's almost a given that you're using some type of OCR software. So I think that's one of the biggest changes we've seen over the last couple of years.
And same to you, Alex?
Yeah, I suppose it is different services in a way. It's just they're looking for the ways in which technology can help them do things they've always done. I think that's really the change that we've seen is they're still essentially doing the same job as they always have been, but it's just how we can help them do that a lot better, a lot smoother, quicker, pretty much better in all ways.
Fair enough, yeah. I think Michael, again, has been on, and I think he's picked up on a point that you were making about the management accounts. Taz, do you use a product for the management accounts?
Yeah, zero. We do use Spotlight for more advanced management accounts. So if you're doing a sort of it's almost just like a taster. You can produce some management accounts quite easily, which are the basic reports in Xero. And if the client wants something more, and this is something that you can, it's a value-added service that you can charge for. You can provide more complex and visual accounts using an add-on called Spotlight, or there's other ones on the market. So yeah.
Mike, I think we've touched on this point briefly, but we'll go back to it perhaps for a bit more detail. Tax Guy asks, I get this works for the type of client who wants advisory. The problem is most clients don't think they need it. So the question becomes, does Receipt Bank and bookkeeping make sense for a normal client?
So again, and I think we have touched on a lot of these points, it almost doesn't matter if you're then going to provide advisory. The technology is available to remove what's essentially a tedious manual task, entering data manually. I don't think there may be, some people who enjoy it, but for most people, if they're trying to focus on other tasks or even scaling up tasks, so if it's taking you 10 minutes to enter the data, or say an hour to enter the data for one client, and you can reduce that down to 5 minutes, you can then take on a whole host of extra clients or spend more time with that client on advisory. And if they don't want it, then you've got that extra time yourself. And we have partners who just go home early on Fridays or Thursdays. So really you can do what you want with that time. It's applicable to every client that is that owns a business, really, because they're all getting invoices, they all have receipts. And we can just extract the data from that. So it's as simple as that, really.
Yeah, good stuff. Thank you, Mike. Hammonds asks, so do the panel actively offer bookkeeping, and what do they view as bookkeeping from the perspective of the accounting firm?
That's a very good question. Yeah, we do offer bookkeeping. It's something that we don't push down people's throat. We'd like to think that our education system is so good that clients can do all of their bookkeeping, or at least some of it. The less that we can be doing, the better, because things like Xero make it so easy to bookkeep. There isn't the need for us to be doing it, because we're obviously more expensive. If you want us to be doing bookkeeping, we're going to be more expensive than pretty much anyone else, unfortunately. But looking at it in that way, it's not something we would ever actively just say no to. It's just making sure that we're providing the right solution for the client more than anything.
Yeah. Taz, do you have a perspective on that?
Yeah, I mean, we do bookkeeping for the clients, and for us that means handling the data coming into the system and converting it into a set of accounts or a set of reports at the end of it. Some clients like to do the bookkeeping themselves, which is fine, and we do a review each month. We find that fewer and fewer clients want to do that, and they'd rather we handle it, just because it's faster and more efficient for us to do it than it is for them to do it. So yeah.
Good stuff. I think there's maybe one for you, Alex. Julie C asks, so do you get more or less phone calls / support queries from clients about receipts / expenses?
You get we look at it in the way that the first 3 months of clients with us, they have quite a lot of contact with us, but in a 3-month period, you pretty much cover 99% of what the business is going to go through on average. So that's where you get the sort of coding questions, where things go, how things should appear, and it is just about putting things in place so that they know how it works. We like to give them the sort of rule on Receipt Bank that use common sense. Just start typing in if you've driven somewhere, if you've gone on a train, it's a travel expense. Just use a bit of common sense, because 99% of the time that's going to be the right code. We come in on a monthly basis like Taz does and review it, and we'll just move it. And if there is anything that we have to change when we're reviewing something, we would always let the client know and explain why we've had to do that. Just again, always trying to build on, we want to be doing less and less in the future on the actual bookkeeping side.
Yeah. Yeah, we've had a +1 for bank statements from Michael. That's good. Julia C, asks, do you try and make bookkeeping profitable, or is it more of a loss leader to deliver other things?
I think it's profitable. I think you can make it profitable, especially using software such as Receipt Bank. No, it's not a loss leader at all for us.
Yeah, and as I say, that the practice excellence and the Xero data sort of backs that up. Really, the most profitable firms were ones that were doing in-house bookkeeping.
So we have partners who didn't offer bookkeeping services before, and then now the software is available for them to do it at scale for low cost. And so they've made it profitable. It's become a revenue stream where it didn't even exist beforehand. So yes, definitely.
Good stuff. And I think we've got a final question from Tax Guy. From Julia C, who says, how long do you continue to review client expense submissions?
It's an ongoing process. There's never a time in which that would stop. If we were finding ourselves that we did sort of 2 or 3 reviews in a row and there was absolutely nothing wrong, we'd probably switch it down to quarterly. And maybe if it still gets perfect every quarter, we'd switch it down to annually, but there would always be a review process in there. And offering things like unlimited telephone support, they always know that they can just pick up the phone or drop us an email, and we'll pick it up at that kind of stage.
Is that a similar experience to yourself?
It's actually very similar. So we start off, if we're doing the review, we start off on monthly review. If it's going well, we move it to quarterly, and we might move it to annual if there's no issues at all.
Is that done over the phone, or how do you...
It's just done over, we have a task scheduler, so we track what work's been done on each client, so we can just quite easily set the frequency of what we're doing on that.
Good stuff. And a final question here from Tax Guy. I guess with all the time you chaps have now with your in-house bookkeeping, what are the sort of key KPIs? Try saying that 3 times quickly. What are the key KPIs that you all track as a firm?
At the moment, we're tracking new client inquiries, so prospects coming in. We're tracking conversions from desktop software to online software, as we're still in that stage of making the switch. And then we also track our staff approval rating. So as long as our clients are liking our staff, essentially, because this whole, the world of accountancy, especially in our firm, it wouldn't work if our staff couldn't get on with our clients. They have to be able to maintain a good level of conversation and be relatable people in that way.
And is that done by a sort of NPS measure or similar?
Yeah, so we've got a few sort of internal bits that we use. Just picking it up, we always ask our clients, once they've had sort of meetings with account managers, how did you find it? Is there anything more that could have gone through? Anything else you would like to talk about? It's just more and more we want to spend our time talking to clients than anything else, because that's where you pick up opportunities, you see things that you can maybe improve on as well.
Wonderful. Taz?
A key KPI that we look at is the number of days it takes us to produce the year-end accounts after year-end. So we're always trying to get that shorter and shorter. And with the data from Receipt Bank and Xero being live in the system, it means that we can help to work on that KPI. So that's quite important for us.
Wonderful. Well, I think we've answered all our questions, and thank you all. We've run out of time for today. Thank you ever so much to Taz, Mike and Alex for their time. Thank you very much for tuning in. As I said, supporting documents and Taz's Use Receipt Bank Like a Pro guide will be available in an email pack after this. Thank you very much for spending the last hour with us. And thank you also to Receipt Bank for supporting this session. And we'll look forward to seeing you on accountingweb.co.uk very soon. Bye for now.